I think this is the angle. Welcome friends, I hope you're all doing well and taking very good care of yourselves. My name's Key, welcome back to my booktube account. Today we are going to be talking about the books that I read in December, aka my December wrap up. Do that take again. I'm gonna try pinning the microphone. In the month of December I read 12 books, which is a lot, and I am going to be talking to you through with all of them. I'm going to be talking about what the plot of the book is about, what my personal rating is, and my thoughts on them, because apparently I have thoughts on all of them. I was trying to write like a little summary for each book, and it ended up taking forever to the point where I started cursing myself and I couldn't be normal and just read like 5 books in a month. It would significantly make my life easier. I read a mixture of books physically because I took part in the book talk challenge, which is called 10 before the end, aka 10 books you want to read before the end of 2024. I was really diligently working through my list, mostly read like 7 books out of 10 from there, and then the rest was just like books I picked up because I was interested. Let's just dive straight in. I'm going to be going in chronological order. The first book that I read was Daughter of the Drowned Empire by Frankie, Diane, Mallis, and I gave this book a 2.5 stars. The world is set after this like big celestial war that caused islands to sink, and the survivors of these islands end up creating another empire called the Lemurian Empire. There are separate smaller countries under the rule of the Lemurian Empire. The main character, Lear, just happens to be the princess of Bamaria, and this country Bamaria is under the rule of the Lemurian Empire, and the Lemurian Empire is controlled by this overarching dude called the Emperor. There is a thing where kids, as soon as they turn of age, they go through this like ceremony. They find out what kind of magical powers they have, and then they get to decide whether they want to be either a magician, a scholar, or a soldier. Find out that Lear has a older sister and her cousin who are going through the ceremony for the first time, and it's not Lear's turn yet. She's a little bit younger at this point. Lear has a long-term boyfriend called Tristan, and Tristan also grew up with Lear's sister and cousin. So they attend the ceremony, and during the ceremony they find out that Lear's cousin is actually possessing some magic that is forbidden and considered dangerous by the Emperor. The Emperor has decreed that anyone found to be in possession of this kind of power should immediately be captured and executed, and unfortunately Lear's cousin, she immediately gets taken away, and Lear's like, no, my cousin. Tristan, her boyfriend, her long-term boyfriend who has grown up with her cousin throughout her entire life, suddenly flips the switch and was like, you know what, she deserves it, because Tristan's family specializes in hunting down people who have these dark powers, and so when he finds someone that has these powers, want to see them gone from the face of the earth. 2 years pass and we find out that Lear's 2 other older sisters are all possessing the same darker powers that her cousin did. Because of that, they're no longer viable heirs. Lear is now the only person that can rule this country. When it comes for Lear to have her own ceremony, something goes horribly wrong and she finds herself at the face of being exiled from her country, and she's like, I cannot have this. She makes a deal with the Emperor that she will train as a soldier and prove herself to him in 6 months' time. Lear has to enlist the help of her I don't know what you call this guy. You know, like family friends, where like your parents are friends with like another set of adults and they have a kid and they like bring this kid over, you play together, even though like you don't really specifically like them or anything, you're just in the same area at the same time. That's what Lear's situation is with this guy, and his name is Ryan with a H. Ryan with a H trains Lear, and they have this kind of like tension-y thing going on, so obviously they're the main love interest. What I hate about this book: emotional cheating. I cannot stand emotional cheating. If this book started with Lear breaking up with Tristan and then forming feelings for Ryan with an H, then I can completely understand and I would be all for it because I support my girl. But unfortunately, she is very much still in a relationship with Tristan throughout the entire book. Also, there's literally no reason for her to keep being with her current boyfriend because he's expressed like a disgust at the fact that her cousin possessed these powers. Lear feels betrayed because she's like, you literally grew up with her. She's a sister to both of us and you turn your back on her in like 2 seconds. That is not right. I cannot stand for it. It goes against all of my morals. And what does she do? She still continues to see him for no reason. It drives me insane. The second book that I read is an ebook, and it is Reign and Ruin by J.D. Evans. Now this book is a Levant inspired story, aka it takes like Middle Eastern elements as inspiration for the storyline. We follow this princess called Name, who is is the daughter of a sultan in this specific kingdom, except the sultan is going crazy because he used too much of his magic, and a side effect is that he starts to lose his mind. Now, this story focuses on Name trying to get control of her kingdom and try to prevent a war that can possibly occur with a kingdom not too far off from them, but she knows that they're planning to storm her empire and she needs to do everything she can to protect them. She also has to hide the fact that her father's going crazy before she becomes the proper heir. The main hurdle in this story is the fact that the inner circle, the inner court that controls all the politics in her empire is ran by her father's best friend, who is not a very good best friend. He hates the sultan. He is desperately trying to get Name married off and sent to another empire so that he can be the one that rules this country instead, and there's a lot of political scheming. There's only so much a girl can do in the kingdom. She is trying to convince her inner court, hey, because there's this war that's gonna happen, I really think we should contact this neighboring kingdom that we've had centuries of feud with. I think we should contact them and ask them for an alliance because we have magic and they don't, but they have soldiers and we don't, and I feel like we'd make really good allies. But the court was like, no, sworn enemies. I don't like this country. So Name's like, men, right? So you know what she does? She writes a letter to that country anyways, ignoring her inner court. She signs it under the name of her father so that like no one can really know that it's her like trying to ask for an alliance. We go to this kingdom that she's requesting an alliance for. In this kingdom there are two men. One is the actual king himself and one is the king's younger brother. So when this letter enters the hands of this kingdom, they end up sending the younger brother to come to Name's kingdom. But when the brother enters the kingdom, he is immediately floored by Name because my girl is intelligent, wise, beautiful, strong. She's like everything. She's the perfect woman. She is so powerful. He gets absolutely enamored by her mind, and this whole story is basically them trying to find a way to convince like Name's like inner court of this alliance and try to make things work between their two countries so that they can prevent this war that threatens both their empires. This story is so original. The magic storyline, there is so much like mechanisms happening in the background that I can't really explain too well in this video, but it is so fascinating. The romance between Name and this prince, his name is Markham, by the way. Markham and Name, their relationship is probably one of my favorite. I love when men just absolutely enamored by the intelligence of their lover and the way he is like balancing her out. He is so hot-headed, quick to act, and Name is so like cool and calm and even tempered, and they're just like beautiful and perfect, like a perfect match together. He is very much, you do whatever you need to do and I will support you from behind. Like, I will do anything you ask me to. I love those kind of relationships. The next one I read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies, and I rated this book 4.75 stars, and it was a beautiful book. Now, I'm pretty sure there is no one here that hasn't heard of Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies, but just in case you're someone who hasn't heard of them, because this book is kind of popular, I will still give you a very brief summary anyways. We follow Emily Wilde, who is a scholar and she specializes in the field of fairies. She knows everything there is to know about them. This book begins with her traveling to this kind of, I think, Icelandic village. She goes there so she can investigate the fairies that are in that region. So in this entire book, fairies are sort of different depending on the kind of region they're in, and they don't all act the same, they don't all have the same tradition. So Emily is trying to write a paper on fairies, and she knows that there isn't much information about the fairies in this village, so she goes there, she can find out more information and write her paper on them and publish it so she can be more well known and get like funding for future research. She loves fairies so much that she only knows how to interact with fairies. She doesn't know how to interact with actual people. When she gets there, she kind of fumbles out the tradition in this village and ends up pissing off a lot of the villagers. You think this isn't a big deal, but this actually is, and it ends up kind of hindering her research. Just as she is stumped about what to do, she gets a visit from her academic rival, Wendell Bamblebee, and she hates his guts because she just thinks he's a freeloader, he doesn't do anything, he's so lazy. Wendell gets to Emily's cottage in this village and he was like, I'll make you a deal, like I'll help you with your research and stuff, let me in on your paper and I'll make sure you get access to this huge academic forum that can open up so many pathways for you. And Emily Wilde is just like, that is bonkers, I'm saying yes. They end up working together. You would think that this sounds pretty tame and like nothing could possibly go wrong. Surprisingly, they land themselves in all kinds of trouble, and it's just so fascinating and fun to read. This is a very interesting story style format as well. It's written as a journal entry, so you're reading Amelie's journal entries, and there are footnotes as well at the bottom that just explains a bit more about like each word or each reference that she makes, and I think it's so fascinating. Like, it was really my favorite thing to read. I don't know if you could tell from when I described this summary, you probably couldn't. Wendell and Amelie are the love interests. She thinks this is like academic rivals. It is very much one-sided. Wendell, I love his character because he is just down bad for Amelie. This is a book where I've never read a more calmer. I will literally tear anything apart for you, but make it cozy fantasy. And it's just so casual. Kind of dig it. I kind of really love it. If you are interested in a book where main love interest once again absolutely respects his lover and is amazed by their mind, but also will do anything to keep them safe, Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies. This is probably the very first sci-fi book I have ever picked up in 2024, and honestly, sci-fi is not my favorite genre. I have tried many times to read sci-fi and I absolutely despise it because I just could never get into it. This book was so famous in my social circles on Book Talk that I absolutely had to pick it up. It is The Blighted Stars by Megan O'Keefe. Earth is no longer habitable and people have to resort to living on spaceships in space. Humanity is now run by a group of really rich families. One of them is the Mercator family, which our main male character Tarquin is a part of. What the Mercator family does is that they run these mining expeditions on other planets available in space where they try to see if these planets are livable. In the process, they also make sure that they mine this specific mineral that helps power these spaceships and keep them in space. Humanity is overpopulated, and their solution to this overpopulation is that people are no longer all conscious at the same time. You have an option to upload your consciousness onto this huge database. You can just like re-download it into your selected body. It doesn't have to be your original body. You can pick and choose what kind of body you want, download your consciousness into it, and you will remember everything. We also follow our main female character whose name is Naira. Naira is being sued by the Mercator family because she has taken a stand against them and taken them to court because she believes that the Mercator family is the cause of all these viable planets in space no longer being habitable, because their mining expeditions are what's actually killing these planets and destroying them. And she strongly believes them, and she's trying to tell the world that this is the truth. You guys need to stop mining, otherwise we're never going to be able to live on a planet. No one believes her. She's just merely a bodyguard that used to work for the family, and so she's like a lower class and easy to silence. So she gets captured and she gets like put on ice, aka her body is just like no longer accessible. Her consciousness is trapped. Tarquin, our main male character, is on a mining mission when something goes horribly wrong and their spaceship is now like plummeting towards this planet that they're supposed to mine at. He finds himself and the crew on this ship stranded on this planet with no way home, and so they have to find a method to contact back home. During this entire thing that's happening, Naira finds herself waking up in the body of Tarquin's current bodyguard's like body. She has to pretend that she is not herself, that she's actually this person she's meant to be. In the process, she's trying to gain the trust of Tarquin and like the crew members, and she's trying to find out the secrets of the Mercator family, prove to Earth, prove to humanity that she is correct, that they need to put a stop to this mining operation. We've got this sort of like enemies to lovers situation where really it's just Naira viewing Tarquin as an enemy, and I need you guys to know Tarquin, my boy, he is just, I am a geologist, I heart rocks, I simply want to explore sediments. So he is just a big goofy nerd. This is definitely Golden Retriever x Black Cat FMC. That is my favorite pairing ever. And also the plot is absolutely crazy. I find myself like so enthralled by the mystery and I couldn't stop turning the pages. This is a trilogy and it is just super interesting. If you're someone who just typically do not read sci-fi, then I recommend this book because it's so easy to get into. Next book we have is Collide by Khabra, and this is a contemporary romance. The main character of our book, Summer, is a student trying to enter a master's program and she wants to become a sports psychologist. She has to write her thesis on a sport and she hates hockey. So of course her professor decides that she should write her topic on hockey. Summer is just not having it. Because she has to write the topic on hockey, she has to work with the team captain of her university's hockey team, Aiden Crawford. Aiden has done a few things that were questionable that has got him in a bit of trouble with his coach. He finds himself at risk of being benched from future games and no longer being able to play for the team unless he helps Summer out with her project because his coach is forcing him to. He's pissed, she's pissed, and now they have to work on a project together. I rated this book 2.75 stars. Found it okay. I loved that this had BIPOC character representation. I don't know, I find that like I very rarely like contemporary romance books because the plot of them just don't seem so necessary to be writing anything beyond like 300 pages. At some point when they start getting together and the plot, like whole conflict gets resolved, the rest of the chapters just feel like filler episodes. I found it a bit too like insta-lovey, low-key, because Aiden was pissed for all of 2 seconds before he suddenly decided he was obsessed with Summer. I did very much like this one scene where Aiden finds out that Summer likes to drink chai, so he decides to learn how to make chai and give it to her every morning, which I found it super cute and adorable, but it was it did what it needed to do. What it needed to do was not what I wanted. Next book is Where the Dog Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. I gave this book 5 stars. 5-star book, amazing. So listen up. So in this book we follow a girl named Liska. Liska is accused of being a witch in her village because she has some kind of special power that she can't control, and she can speak to animals and she can do all kinds of things that other people in her village can't do and are deemed kind of unacceptable. When an incident occurs in her village that makes Liska very much an outcast and risk her family being casted aside from the village, she decides that she's going to put an end to this once and for all, and she enters the forest surrounding her village because she heard a rumor that there is a magical flower that you can find in this forest that if you find it you can make a wish. It will grant any wish in the world. So Liska seeks this flower because she wants to wish her magic away. When she finally finds the flower in the forest, she ends up coming across this being called the Leshy, and the Leshy in Polish folklore is basically the guardian of the forest, and he sees Liska trying to take his flower and he's like, hey yo, you're literally stealing, this is my flower. Liska's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know this was your flower. And the Leshy says, I know what you want. If you serve me for a year, then I will grant your wish and you can take this flower and you can go. Liska decides that, you know what, this sounds like a very good deal. She is so desperate to wish away her powers that she's like, yes, absolutely, I will work for you. So she ends up working for the Leshy, but then she finds out that she is not the very first person to ever make this kind of bargain with the Leshy. There are very dark secrets about his past. She needs to find out for her safety. If you are someone that loves House Moving Castle, because this is so House Moving Castle coded. If you're someone that loves Polish folklore, I never knew about Polish folklore until I read this book. If you're also someone that likes a bit of like gothic fantasy, this is your book. It is just beautiful. The writing, the world building, the characterizations, everything. On to the 7th book that I read, How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kuang, and I gave this book 4.25 stars. This book is a bit heavy, so I recommend looking up trigger warnings. Helen's younger sister has passed away, and it is all due to the fall of this man named Grant Shepherd, who is the most popular boy in her high school. She carries on this belief until adulthood, and also acting in a way that has her walking around eggshells to keep her family happy because they never recovered from the death of her younger sister. Helen grows up to become this super successful author. So successful that her book gets picked up to be formed into a TV show. Normally, this is great news, good news. She is just making bank, right? Yes. Except one of the screenwriters for Helen's TV show is actually Grant Shepherd, the same guy who is responsible for her sister's unaliving. She is just absolutely furious and she tries to get Grant to be chased off of this team, but Grant is like, hell no, I need to make this bread, I need to make money, some of us has bills to pay. So Helen's like, fine, you can stay on the team. But they have this like really insane tension with each other and just unresolved issues. One thing leads to another and suddenly they're friends with benefits, and now they're just exploring this relationship, working through their traumas. It is just an absolute roller coaster of a book. It was so emotional for me at the very least, and it was just so many things that Helen goes through in this book was so relatable. After reading this book, I've come to realize that I might actually just want to read contemporary romances that are just like kind of fluffy, yes, but they also are just painful. They discuss hard topics and they're just a bit real, and that the characters have like some kind of emotional like journey that I can relate to. If I'm not wrong, this might be the same screenwriter for Emily Henry's books that were being turned into like TV shows or movies. I'm not sure which one it is. Also, the romance in this is absolutely insane, because tell me why I was going absolutely feral about the fact that they were having gentle touches and caresses with each other more than the fact than when they actually did the thing. I've never known a love more gentle than whatever happened in this book. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, and this is a controversial book, but I want you to know that I rated it 4 stars, and some people either love it or hate it, and thankfully I fall in the spectrum of people that don't really mind it. I liked it. I think it's good. I think it was alright. This is a really interesting book that features dragons, and in this world when dragons die, they curl up into the sky and become these things called like moons. Our female character, Rave, is a super badass assassin that is part of this rebel group that goes against the crown. She does this thing where she hunts down men that are absolutely despicable, just assassinates them, dismembers them, you know, the usual things. One day the king decides that he's had enough of this rebel group, so he hires a bounty hunter to hunt down literally any member of this rebel group who gets caught. Rave. She gets thrown into the royal prison. She is now sitting there waiting for the trial to happen to decide her fate. While she is sitting there just chilling, someone breaks into this prison. It's this like mysterious guy, and she overhears him talking to the prisoner beside her, negotiating for this piece of moon shard. These moons that are basically dragon corpses, sometimes they occasionally just fall from the sky, and when they fall they shatter into a million pieces, and these pieces are called moon shards. So this stranger is trying to collect moon shards. While he was negotiating, he notices Rave sitting in the corner, and Rave is just there like, literally do not pay me any attention, but he gets closer to her and he finds out something that is so shocking. He decides, you are coming with me. So he breaks her out of prison. The rest of this book is just trying to find out why he did what he did. I cannot say too much without spoiling this entire book. Some people didn't like this because look at her, she's a chonker. I personally feel like the writing was okay. I think there are some scenes where like she'll describe something happening and then like it's meant to transition into something else that's happening at the same time, but it makes me feel like we've completely shifted from like, instead of going A to B, I feel like we went from A to D, and I was like, hello, where was the switch? What happened in between? But other than that, look at this, I tabbed it. I loved this book, I liked it. I think it did what it needed to do. On Christmas time, I ended up going camping, and for this camping trip, I bought a bajillion books because I wanted to read something while I was out camping. One of the books that I decided to read was Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, a YA horror-ish kind of book, and it was my first venture into anything slightly spooky because, let's be clear here, I'm a coward, okay? If a book is scary, I can't take it. I can't sleep at night. But I decided, what better time to read this than in the middle of the forest, no reception, no nothing, because that's a safe environment to read a scary book in, right? Like, what could hurt me in an open forest? This book follows twins, Andrew and Dove. They go to this boarding school in America, and their best friend is this boy named Thomas. So during summer break, Andrew goes back to Australia. He comes back to the boarding school. The book starts off with him in the car having a conversation with his dad, and his dad's telling him, you know, Andrew, you can transfer schools, we can put you somewhere else. Apparently something happened the year before that made him sort of a social pariah. You don't know what happens, and Andrew says, no, I don't want to go to a different school because why? My bestie Thomas is in this boarding school, so I'm gonna go to this school. When he gets there, he meets up with Thomas and everything's chill until Thomas gets pulled aside by the principal and a bunch of police officers. We find out that Thomas's parents is now missing. Thomas is now the prime suspect for the disappearance. Thomas is obviously like, I know nothing, I'm innocent. He suddenly starts acting really shady. When Andrew confronts him about this, Thomas just like flat out refuses to talk to him about it, and he just starts avoiding him. And Andrew decides, you know what, I've had enough. We're meant to be besties and you're not telling me anything. I'm gonna find out for myself. Oh, it's a masterpiece. You need to search up trigger warnings for this book, like please. In this book, it is so obvious. Andrew is down bad for Thomas, and he finds out that Thomas is being accused of killing like his parents because that's why they think they disappeared. He literally goes up to Thomas and was like, you know what, it's okay if you did. I don't care. Hello? That is not helpful at all. Andrew is unhinged. Thomas is also unhinged. Like, these two boys, they will do absolutely anything for each other. There's no one in this world that matters than one another for them. The book also has illustrations that are slightly creepy. Warning, I'm going to be showing illustration. Slightly creepy. Skip this if you don't want to see it, okay? Showing it now. This is one of the illustrations. How cool is that? The next book that I read during my camping trip was A Hunger Like No Other by Kresley, and this is a paranormal romance book. Earned, let me see how many stars I gave. I gave it a 2.75 stars because I wasn't that great of a fan of this book, but it was The book is set in like a paranormal world where there is obviously vampires, werewolf, witches, but there's also stuff like valkyries, like demons. The story begins with this werewolf that we find is trapped under the catacombs in Paris. This werewolf's name is Lachlan, and he's the main male character of our book. He smells something above ground that has him shocked into attention. He realizes that is the scent of his mate that he's waited several years for. Bro decides, after many thousands of years of imprisonment, this is the time to free himself. He manages to go upstairs and now he's on the hunt for this mate. The story cuts to our main female character, Emma, who is a half Valkyrie, half vampire, and she is raised by her Valkyrie family. She's raised by her aunts. Her mother is no longer alive, and she doesn't know who her vampire side of the family is. She doesn't know who her dad is, and she's on this entire trip in Paris to begin with because she wants to find out her background, who her father is. She notices that she's being followed by Lachlan, and she doesn't know who this man is. She just knows that he's a paranormal being and she is at risk of danger from any paranormal beings in general. She tries to flee because she's like, why is this man following me? And because she starts fleeing, this man starts chasing him. Eventually Emma gets caught and Lachlan very rudely informs her that you are now my mate, but then he finds out that she is half vampire. He doesn't know that she's half, he just assumes that she's fully vampire. Because he was trapped under the Paris catacombs by the vampires, I don't know if I mentioned that. He was trapped there by the vampires. He was tortured. He absolutely loathes vampires. And he's like, what a cruel twist of fate that my mate is the same species that tortured the hell out of me. Don't like her. I'm gonna make her life miserable. He's also battling like the urge to protect her as like a mate and stuff. Lachlan has been trapped for like several thousands of years and he literally does not know how the world has advanced. He's literally finding out about credit cards for the first time. He learns how to drive for the very first time. He ends up making a deal with Emma. You get me back to my Packlands, I will set you free and I'll let you reunite with your family. And Emma, just wanting to get away from this man, was like, yes, I will take you anywhere, just free me. They obviously grow closer in this journey as she brings him home. I could not stand this book. It was like this paranormal influence, I'd say, is probably pretty weak. It's not the strongest. I don't think it's the most well structured either. I think that's because I've read other paranormal romances. What I just really didn't like about this book was just the way the characters were written. Don't like the way Lachlan acted. Lachlan is just a walking red flag of a man. Also, I did not like Emma's aunts at all. The Valkyries, like her family, oh my god, they're so protective over Emma. They're crazy, okay? This book has a lot of dubious consents. Maybe look up trigger warnings. I know this is a series, a long book series, and each book features a different couple. I've read series like that, and there are definitely some couples in the book where like I did not vibe with. I hated the book because I didn't like the couple. It happens. It's unfortunate that it is the first book for me in this series. So I might decide if I want to read the rest of the series, but I don't know. I need you guys to know that it's like 12:30 at this point when I'm filming this, and I'm slowly becoming more and more delirious. I don't know if you can tell, or my editing is just so good that you can't tell. Like losing the plot right now. Book 11, Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Amelie Zhao. I am a big fan of Asian setting fantasies. A lot of them have disappointed me in 2024 because I would pick them up expecting a lot and they did not deliver. But this, if there's any Asian inspired fantasy books that you read, let it be this one. This one was done so well, so beautiful. Chef's kiss, 5 stars. Our main character in this book is called Lan. And when Lan's kingdom gets invaded by these group of people called the Elantians, and her mother passes away in a skirmish between an Elantian general, Lan gets left behind with this mysterious mark on her wrist. And she has no way to find answers because her mother is no longer here. So the story time skips to a few years where she's now living in an Elantian outpost and she has a job as a song girl at a tea house. At the tea house, she unfortunately runs into this super rude, brutish soldier who is determined to make Lan his. Lan absolutely does not want that. In the process of her fighting off this soldier, she gets rescued by this boy named Zen. Zen is a magic practitioner. Magic practitioners used to be very abundant in this kingdom, but they were eradicated by the Elantians because they possessed magic, and the Elantians also possessed magic. So I'm guessing it was kind of like this, like, only one of us can have magic, and it's not going to be the natives. Nope, Zen is alive. He is one of the very few magic practitioners alive. Zen recognizes the mark on Lan's wrist. When Lan finds this out, she's like, you have to help me. You have answers, and I'm going to go with you, and I want to find out what this mark means and what literally my whole life has meant. And in the process, they find out that they each have really great magic capabilities that can either destroy the world or free them. Love the fact that this had Chinese mythology. It was really well done. I liked the journeys that the characters take. A lot of plots I read where characters do these like side quests and they ultimately play no role in the actual plot. This book doesn't do that. Every side quest actually has a role. It all ties back. The thing I love the most is the romance between Zen and Lan, or their relationship. It's a slow burn romance, okay? I'm telling you this now. The relationship is so beautifully written and it just makes so much sense. You go from them being strangers to friends to lovers, and it's just like a beautiful progression. The very last book I read was The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Ifueko, and I gave this book a 4.25 stars. I'm gonna keep the summary and my review of this book very brief because I did do a reading vlog of it. I have a reading reactions video up if you want to check it out, which I will link in my description box. The story of The Maid and the Crocodile follows our main character Sade, who is an orphan girl that is trying to find a job in the big city as a maid, and she is disabled and she has vitiligo. She has a bad leg that requires her to use a cane to get around places. Sade is able to see spirits and talk to them better than the average person can, and while she's out finding a job, she ends up getting entangled with this god called the Crocodile God, and he is super feared in this book by all the people because there is rumors that he takes beautiful women as sacrifices. These women that are sacrificed to him are never to be seen again. When Sade encounters the Crocodile God, actually finds out that the Crocodile God is this insanely beautiful guy who is just cursed. He just needs help relieving the pain that the curse causes him. He is also in need of someone to help him break the curse. Sade ends up having to help him break the curse, but she ultimately decides, I still want to be a maid. So she finds a job in the city in this really fancy swanky inn. When the owner of the inn finds out that Sade can see spirits and talk to spirits and has this like ability to perform magic in general, she decides that Sade is her ticket back to her former glory. Sade is just forced to confront whether she should accept whatever life gives her and stay in the role that is destined for her, or if she should fight tooth and nail to fight destiny and carve her own path. I love this book. The message it gave was really amazing. I also really loved the crocodile's characterization, the romance he has with Sade. He is so sweet. Like, you should really watch my reading vlog because I freak out over the things he is saying to Sade, okay? I also really like that this book basically critiques like the resolution of the original duology that this is based off, which is Waybearer and Redemptor by Jordan Ifueko. It's also African settings. I find that really fascinating to read about. These are the 12 books that I read in December. So if you have read any of them, just let me know your thoughts on these books. If you are interested by any of these, I highly recommend that you check them out. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you like, subscribe, and just leave a comment telling me what was your favorite book in this video. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! I like the way she smiles. She got me staring for a while. Got me staring for a while. Yeah. Maybe it's our conversation.